Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you all back to another episode of the Boombox Guru. I'm your host, LB. So before I dive into this video, I'd like to ask everybody that's tuning in if you could please just like the video, share the video, as well as subscribe to the channel because it does help out this channel a lot. So without further ado, today's video I'm really excited about because I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite bands, and as you can see by the title, this video is going to be me doing a discography review on Fishbone from the years 1985 to 1996, so roughly the band's first 10 years. Fishbone, they're an American rock band from Los Angeles, California. They formed back in 1979. Uh, One of the things that makes the band unique is that all the members of this band they're black. They're all African American, and they play an eclectic mix of different styles, ranging from ska punk, hardcore punk, funk, soul, hard rock, heavy metal. I mean, it's just a whole amalgamation of different styles. And one thing that's interesting about them, I forgot to mention reggae as well. They've done that too, but there's been cases where they've played multiple different songs within the same song. I mean, excuse me, different styles within the same song. Like, I've listened to a song that'll start off like punk, and then by the end of it, they're playing reggae or funk. Like, that's just how great this band is. Got into them well over 10 years ago. I was aware of them, but what really made me dig into their discography was a documentary they put out called Everyday Sunshine, the story of Fishbone, because that really told the band's history and it chronicled their journey up to that point. And it really inspired me to want to get into this band and check out their music. So I went on a journey seeking out a lot of their music on CD, and I was fortunate to find quite a bit of their stuff. And they're also a great live band. I had the pleasure of seeing them live last year. They did a co-headlining tour with Parliament Funkadelic, and it was one of the best shows. Matter of fact, one of the greatest shows that I ever been to. That's in my list of my top 5 shows. You know, if I had a list of my top 5 shows, that one would be right in there in that category. That's how great they are. And you know, being an active band for over 40 something years, I mean, yeah, it does comes with its trials and tribulations. They have had several personnel changes throughout the years. I'm excited to say that recently, though, most of the original classic lineup is actually back into the band. I mean, there's still a couple of members I think that aren't playing with them, but most of them are back in the band. And they put out a new EP. It's a self-titled EP, same as they did with their first EP. But they're still an active band. They're still a force to be reckoned with, and they're definitely a live band that I recommend anybody to see. So without further ado, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this video, and I'm gonna discuss this particular era of the band because I think it's my favorite era of the band, and it's these particular records are the ones that I have spent the most time with. So let's get into it as I do this discography review on the mighty Fishbone. Stay tuned. Alright, so the first album I want to talk about is the Fishbone EP, released back in 1985. This is a used copy that I found at Manifest Disc and Tapes several years ago. Actually, probably over 10 years ago. Found it in the used section of there. But yeah, this is the band's first release. It's a 6-track EP released on Columbia Records, man. And you know, this album, it contains some of Fishbone's most popular songs, including Ugly, Lion AB, gonna try to keep that censored, and Party at Ground Zero. Party at Ground Zero, that is actually one of the band's most popular songs, and it's still a staple of their live shows. I had the pleasure of hearing that live when I went to go see them last year. And you know, it's a good catchy song, but I don't know if a lot of people have really listened to the lyrics, because that song is actually about nuclear war. You know, this man, 1985, I'm guessing that the Cold War thing that was happening in the 80s was still going on. Then Lion AB, which I'm not gonna say the last two. I'm gonna censor the last 2 words in that title. This is a really cool ska song, man. I really like it, and there's actually a pretty funny story behind this particular track, involving the Roots and Jimmy Fallon. I don't know if anybody watches Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, but one of the election years, I think her name was Michelle Bachman. She was a guest on Jimmy Fallon, and the Roots, when she was coming out on stage, as a guest, the Roots actually started playing this song as her walkout music. Now I don't know if somebody on Jimmy Fallon's staff or Michelle Bachman's team caught on to it, but the Roots got in a little bit of trouble because of that. I think now they have to have their music, whatever music they're going to play on the show, has to be screened for the producers and so forth before they can play it live on air, man. But I thought that was a little tidbit I would add in there. But I really like the Fishbone EP. Mainly the sound is centered around ska and funk rock, and I really enjoy how sonically the band's playing is very upbeat and energetic. I mean, listen to this record, it really just sounds like these guys are having so much fun, and it really comes out in the music. And I enjoy every song on here, man. Like Another Generation, Modern Industry, which Modern Industry, that's a song where they're like name dropping a lot of radio stations. I don't know if they're all from California or Los Angeles, but I think they're just dropping a lot of radio stations that I guess possibly were supporting them or so forth. VTTLOTFDGF. I forgot what that song is about. It's some kind of conspiracy about somebody was trying to claim that some type of bombings were developed by Godzilla farts or something. Like somebody was really trying to say that that's what would cause some type of bombings or something. I might have it incorrect, but that's a really nice funk rock track that I enjoy. But yeah, this whole entire EP is just a classic in my opinion, and it's one of their best releases. I really enjoy it. I mean, just what two or three more songs, and this really would have been a full length album. This would have been a debut record, man. But it's just an awesome record. Just definitely one that I recommend that you start out with. Because it's just fun. It's energetic, man. Like when you listen to this record, you're just gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna put you in a good mood. So definitely check out the Fishbone EP, 1985. Awesome debut release from the band. Just a phenomenal record. And like I said, this was before the band really started to add in hard rock and metal and stuff in their sound. Their sound was basically based around ska funk or ska punk and funk rock, but still a great release that I highly enjoy, and I highly recommend for newcomers to the band as well. Okay, so the next CD or album that I want to talk about is actually the band's debut full-length studio album, which is In Your Face, released in 1986. Debut full-length album. Let me show you right quick, because you have three members right here, and then you have the other three members right here. This is on the vinyl record. This right here is actually the back cover on the vinyl record. But yes, this is the band's debut full-length album, and it's a pretty good record, man. I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna get into it right now. As far as like this album. So In Your Face, it continues the same funk and ska sound of the EP. Though on this record they do add in genres such as reggae, punk rock, and soul, and a little bit of new wave is also added to the band sound on here. Speaking of punk rock, the last song on the album, called Simon Says the Kingpin, that was actually a foreshadowing of the band's musical direction and where they would go with their subsequent releases. So this album was actually the first indication that they were going to start adding in more rock sounds into what they were already doing. My favorite song on this album it has to be Charlie. I really did that song. This is an ode to thick and curvy women, and they actually played that song live too when I went to go see them last year, man. I got so hyped when they played that, man, because it's one of my favorites from them. And In Your Face, I'll be honest with you, I like this record, but it ain't necessarily one of my favorite albums from Fishbone. I really think it's a solid album. It has a lot of great songs, but however, I much prefer the Fishbone EP that came out prior. And the reason being is because as much as I do enjoy the music on In Your Face, I really think that the band lacked the energetic performance that they had on the Fishbone EP. That's just my personal opinion. It just sometimes it just kind of sounds like they held back a little bit and didn't really just go all the way. They didn't really just go bananas like they did on that EP. And I don't know if that was their choice because maybe they were going into their first album, or maybe it was a label thing. But that's really about my only complaint about this album, is that they just the energy was just a little bit stale compared to what they did on the EP, because I mean the EP sounds like they're having a party. You know, the EP sounds like they're having a party. I guess you could say In Your Face kind of sounds like the party's kind of starting to wind down. It's still hype. The party's still jumping, but it's starting to kind of wind down. That's kind of how In Your Face sounds. So I don't know if that was their decision or if it was the label. But in any case, this is still a really good album. This is still a really good album. So don't just because I think that it lacks the same energetic performance of the EP doesn't mean that this is a bad record. This has still got a lot of good music on it. I enjoy all the songs on this record. As a matter of fact, I think I enjoy it more nowadays than I did in the past, that I've spent more time with it. So don't skip over this one. Definitely check this out. It's definitely worth your listening pleasure. So yeah, Fishbone, In Your Face, first full-length studio album, 1986. Definitely go check this out. You could kind of say it's sort of like maybe slightly like a bridge in between the debut and where they would go with the next record. So definitely check this one out as well. Okay, so next album I want to talk about is Truth and Soul, released in 1988. I think I also found this as a used copy at Manifest 2 years ago. Yeah, I did. I remember I was still in college at the time, and I remember after class I went straight down to Manifest because I think I got out of class early, and I found it in the used section. But yeah, this is the band's second full-length studio album, third release overall, released in 1988. This is one of my favorite Fishbone albums. And Truth and Soul, for me, this is where Fishbone really hit their stride. This is where the band really hit their stride because they brought back that fun and energetic performance of the Fishbone EP, which I said that was something that was lacking on the prior studio album, In Your Face. And Truth and Soul is also the first album where Fishbone began adding hard rock and metal to their sound, because lead guitarist and one of the primary songwriters, Kendall Jones, he was really into metal. And he was getting a lot more metal during this time. As a matter of fact, a great example would be the first song on the album, which is Freddy's Dead. So Fishbone, they start the album off doing a magnificent cover of the Curtis Mayfield classic Freddy's Dead from the Superfly soundtrack. And man, this song is a smash. And you know, they turned this funk and soul song into like a monster of a funk metal song. I mean, it's one of my favorites of Fishbone songs that I've ever heard. And I was a little bummed out. I was a little disappointed that they didn't do this song live when I went to go see them at their show last year. I remember when I was standing out in line, there was an older gentleman. He was out there, him and another older guy, they was out there talking. He was saying like, man, I hope they do Freddy's Dead, man. And I was kind of hoping that too, but they didn't. I wish they would have had it because they definitely would have brought the house down even more with that track. But continuing on, man, they even dive into hardcore punk a little bit more. Songs like Deep Inside and Subliminal Fascism, those are hardcore punk tracks. You know, Fishbone introduced punk rock into their sound on the In Your Face album with that song Simon Says Kingpin. And you know, with addition to the new genres to their sound, you know, Fishbone, you know, they don't forget about their funk and ska roots. You know, Ma and Pa, Question of Life are both upbeat, fun, catchy ska punk tunes. Ma and Pa, that's one of Fishbone's most popular songs. And on the surface, it sounds like a catchy little ska tune that you can dance to. But however, this song actually has a pretty deeper message about dysfunctional families and how that can negatively affect children. But it's one of the most popular songs. Had the pleasure of hearing that live as well. Boning in the Boneyard, that's a cool funk and soul track. There's actually two alternate versions of this song that appear on the Set the Booty Up Right EP that came out in 89. Some others to mention, Pouring Rain, which is more of like a slow R&B and soul track. Let's see here. What's another one I like on here? Slow Bus Moving, Howard Beach Party. They actually performed that song in the movie called Tapehead, starring John Cusack and Tim Robbins. Both of those gentlemen are huge Fishbone fans. But Change is another great one. That's another slow one. It's more of kind of like an inspirational kind of song. Really dope one. But yeah, Truth and Soul, really great record. Really great record. Now this was the band's breakthrough in my opinion. This is where they really broke through. This is where their fan base really started to increase. This is where they really started to gain a cult following. I think at this point, This is where you were starting to see them do a lot of cameo appearances in films. They were starting to get a lot of placements on movie soundtracks. You were starting to see a lot of celebrities wearing their shirts in movies and TV shows. Most popularly, John Cusack in the movie Say Anything. There's several scenes in that movie on Say Anything where John Cusack is actually wearing a Fishbone shirt that has this logo. If you can see that, there's several scenes in that movie where he's wearing a Fishbone shirt. And as a matter of fact, you know the iconic scene in Say Anything where when him and Ione Sky had broken up or whatever, where he's standing outside her window holding the boombox. Now in the movie, we hear Peter Gabriel's "In Your Eyes." That's what we hear on the movie, but in reality, he was really blasting Fishbone. Like, yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but yeah, he was really fat. He was really blasting Fishbone through those speakers. But on the movie they put in Peter Gabriel's "In Your Eyes." But yeah, I just thought I would throw that in there. But yeah, this is a great record. Really great record. Like I said, they hit their stride with this because this is where they was really starting to bring in that hard rock and metal sound. And, they were taking off. They were taking off at this point, man. So great record. An essential Fishbone album that I think everybody should listen to, or they should try to get a physical copy of if they're getting into this man. Truth and Soul, 1988. Check it out, y'all. Alright, so next album I want to talk about is Reality, The Reality of My Surroundings, released in 1991. This is the band's third full-length studio album, but their fourth release overall. And I'm going to show you guys the full cover art, because this actually is not the full cover. I'm going to show you guys if you just give me a brief moment. Alright, so this is actually the full cover. This is actually the full cover right here. It's actually like kind of a poster. So you get the whole entire band. If you fold out the liner notes. As you can see, hope you guys can see that real well. Maybe hold it back like this. But yeah, as you can see, this is like, you get the full picture of the band. Then in the back, this is the liner notes, got the lyrics and stuff like that. Got the Fishbone logo. Yeah, really cool. But yeah, this right here, The Reality of My Surroundings, this is my favorite Fishbone album. I mean, Reality sounds like everything that the band had been working up to at that point. It all came together on this album. I consider this to be their greatest and most complete work. Every musical style the band had played at this point is included here, from their early ska punk days, the punk rock, to the heavy funk metal, starting with Truth and Soul. It all just came together and gelled with this album. Most fans consider this to be Fishbone's creative peak, and I couldn't disagree with that. I definitely agree with that. A few song highlights for me, but not limited to. Sunless Saturday. Once again, they tackle that hard rock, heavy metal sound. This song also had a really great video directed by Spike Lee. Definitely check that out. Everyday Sunshine. This song combines funk rock, soul, and gospel to create another huge fan favorite. I got to hear this song live too at their show. Matter of fact, I think it was this song that they played where there was an older guy, like somewhere standing behind me. He actually started crying and had he started having a testimony. I guess it'd be like that sometimes, man. But yeah, I think it was during this song, man. He started having a testimony and saying hey, am I in heaven? I asked God to forgive me and all like that. It was a little wild, but in any case, Pray to the Junkie Maker. This is a reggae song, and it actually critiques the crack epidemic that was happening at the time that was sweeping America. Pressure, a punk rock song that gets faster and more intense as the song plays, hence the title. Man, Fight the Youth, which was one of the singles. So Many Ways. Housework. Man, it's pretty much the whole entire album, man. Hold up, let me check something out. There's another song on here. Baby Head, Nasty Man. Those Days Are Gone. What else is on here? This whole entire album. It's just Behavior Control Technician. I think that's about parents being too strict on their kids and stuff like that. But just a phenomenal record. I mean, there are so many other songs on this album that I could highlight, but mine was be an album review, a solo album review if I was going to do that. But yeah, it would practically be the whole entire album. It's just really good. Reality of My Surroundings, man. This is the band's most complete work. and it's everything you want out of the Fishbone album. I mean, it's got everything from people that are more fans of the early ska, punk, and funk rock, to the people that really dug the more hard rock and metal element they was bringing in. All of that comes together on this record, which is why I consider it to be the band's most complete work. So, man, definitely one that you cannot overlook. Definitely one that you gotta check out and just listen to. It's just a really great record, man. And I don't know if they've ever done anything that was better than that. I'm not trying to diss what they did afterwards, but to me, that record was it. That was it right there for me personally. But yeah, check out The Reality of My Surroundings, man, if you don't check out anything else. Phenomenal record. All right, so next album I want to talk about is Give a Monkey a Brain, released in 1993. The actual full title is Give a Monkey a Brain, and he swear he's the center of the universe. And I think that was a quote from one of the band members. I don't know if it might have been Norwood. I think it was Norwood. Somebody in the band said that. But that's where the title comes from. This was released in 1993. But really good record, man. This and the Fishbone EP, these were like the first two Fishbone albums that I found when I really got on my journey. I think this was the first one though. I found this at a bookstore that I go to. It was they sell used music, and I was looking at the used CDs, and boom, it was right there, Fishbone. And I had just really started my journey in seeking out their music. And it's like, whoa, I found the Fishbone album on my first go. It's almost like it was destined. But yeah, I think this was the first one that I bought. I actually like this record, man. It's one of my favorites, but unfortunately, man, it's marred by a lot of controversy. I mean, this was actually the final studio album to include the full original classic lineup, and it was also their last album on Columbia Records. Yeah, this was one of the first Fishbone albums that I bought, like I said, when I began my journey. And so it does hold a special place for me, and I consider it to be one of my favorites. Give a Monkey a Brain, it had a mixed reaction amongst the fans, with some hating it and others loving it. My personal opinion, I think it's an underrated album that has been overshadowed by the controversy and the interband turmoil. And that whole thing, it's a lot to go into. That's like a video within itself. But basically, original guitarist Kendall Jones, he left the band after the recording of this album. He had a mental breakdown, and I think it started with his mother passing away a few years earlier, and he was having a hard time grieving that. And then his father came back into the picture, and I think it's alluded or alleged that his father might have been like a religious cult leader or something, and it led to him like leaving the band and joining a religious cult. And bassist John Norwood and Kendall's brother actually went to go get him, and they ended up catching like a attempted kidnapping charge. They had to go to court for it and everything, and the charges got dismissed because when Kendall got on the stand, all of this is discussed in the documentary, by the way. He pretty much hurt himself because he pretty much demonstrated to everybody that he was mentally unstable. So they dropped the charges and everything, but it really had a negative effect on the band. And I think this album would have did so much better if it wasn't like overshadowed by that controversy. And then there was a lot of conflicts that was happening amongst the band members. A lot of the tension was getting out of hand. It affected the recording process. Keyboardist Chris Dowd, who was also one of the main songwriters in the band, he ended up leaving the next year in '94 for a long time, although he is back in the band now. And they also ended up getting dropped by their label after its release. But I thought the music on this album was good. I thought it was kind of a continuation of what they did on The Reality of My Surroundings. Give a Monkey a Brain is definitely heavier and it's more abrasive. I mean, I look at it now as being like the darker, younger brother of Reality. I mean, the first three tracks on the album are straight up heavy metal: Swim, Servitude, and Black Flowers. Black Flowers is my favorite amongst the three. I think Kendall Jones wrote the song and he wrote the lyrics. But I know he definitely wrote the lyrics, and the lyrics are kind of sad. Lyrics are kind of sad. You kind of see where he was mentally at that time. It's not until the fourth track, Unyielding Conditioning, which was also one of the band's singles and had a video, that they returned to their early ska punk roots. Let's see what else. This album, it also boasts some of the band's funkiest moments with songs of Properties of Propaganda and Nut Megalomaniac, they really tap into that P-Funk influence on those tracks, man. I mean, you would think George Clinton might have done these two songs. Lemon Meringue, this is a funky tune that has them tapping into their R&B and soul roots. Really nice little tune on there. The Warmth of Your Breath and Drunk Schizo. These are a couple of my favorites on here. Has the band putting their own spin on like into crossover thrash and hardcore punk. Some other tracks on here. I'm gonna open up the case to get a better look. Let's see what else is on here. They All Have Abandoned Their Hopes is a good one. That's yeah, I forgot to mention that one. That's a really good one. That's a good one. I think they played that live when I saw them last year. In the Rain, another heavy hard rock number, kind of grunge. No Fear. I mean, pretty much, I enjoy this whole entire album, to be quite frank. I really do. I really do. But you know, I've defended this album a lot over the years because I think it's misunderstood and I think it's underappreciated. And I still, to this day, I still stand by it being one of my favorite Fishbone albums. But I can understand why a lot of people were disappointed by it, you know, because, you know, the music is great, but there's definitely a lot of darkness and anger that's expressed through the lyrics and sound and the performance. Now that I revisit this album, I can kind of hear the darkness that's looming around it. And also on recent listens, you know, I can sort of hear the shift in the band's camaraderie. That it's not the same as it was on the previous albums. You know, the previous records, they all sounded like the band was having a party for the most part. And this one, I can kind of feel that disconnect that is not quite there. But I still think that this is a great record. I kind of look at it like when Prince did Diamonds and Pearls and he did the Love Symbol album. Like the Diamonds and Pearls was the more commercial record, but the Love Symbol album was like the more less radio friendly, darker younger brother in a sense. That's how I look at this album. The reality of my surroundings was more commercial sounding. This one wasn't as radio friendly, but it still had a lot of great tracks. So maybe I, you know, even though it was the first Fishbone album that I bought, that's because I was beginning my journey. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend starting with this one. Personally, I recommend starting with the Fishbone EP, working your way up to hear the band, how the band's sound evolved. But yeah, it's still what I want to overlook. I would encourage anybody to go and listen to the album themselves and form their own opinions. You know, just don't take my word and don't take reviewers' words either. Just, you know, listen to yourself and formulate your own opinions about it. But I think it's a really dope record. I like it, and I listen to it a lot even to this day. So Fishbone, Give a Monkey a Brain, 1993, great record. Check it out. Excuse me. Okay, so next CD I'm going to talk about, or album I should say, and this is the last one on this video, is Chim Chim's Badass Revenge, released in 1996. Yeah, 1996. I always wondered if that title was inspired by Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass song. I always wonder if that song was that title was kind of inspired by that movie. But in any case, man, yeah, this pretty, like I said, Give a Monkey a Brain, that was the final album with the full original lineup, the classic lineup, and it was also their last album on Columbia. They got dropped by the label after that because I guess the sales and all the controversy that was going on with the band. They ended up signing with Rowdy Records down in Atlanta, owned by Dallas Austin. You know, who was behind a lot of people. You know, TLC, most well known, and several other acts. You know, legendary, iconic producer in music. So this album, you know, I don't know, the band, I don't know what to say. The band was just overcoming like some real trials and tribulations. You know what I'm saying? And their album was actually produced by Dallas Austin and Fishbone themselves. You know, I'll be honest with you, man. This Chim Chim isn't really one of my favorite Fishbone albums. You know, I listen to it from time to time, but it doesn't have much replay value for me. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I'm not saying it's a bad record either, but this is arguably the band's most abrasive and aggressive record. I mean, they're really angry on this album. And what's so interesting, though, is that Dallas Austin in the documentary Everyday Sunshine, he said that he wanted to do for Fishbone what Rick Rubin did for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But when I listen to this record, honestly though, this album sounds like the total opposite, because the mixing and the production on here, it's not the greatest. It's a bit rough and it sounds a bit muddled, and it actually makes the album sound like really underground. Cause Rick Rubin, he produced Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that record, when that record dropped, I mean, they was already on the trajectory of blowing up, but that record just shot them through the roof. I mean, and if you listen to that record, and it's a great record, it's one of my favorite Chili Peppers albums. That album sounds very accessible. You understand why they took off, because it's an accessible album, but this record's not really accessible. So I don't know if maybe that was Dallas' intent when he went in producing, and maybe he kind of bumped heads with the band, but this album is not accessible at all. So I didn't quite understand when he said that he wanted to do for Fishbone what Rick Rubin did for the Chili Peppers, but I digress on that. But like I said, man, this ain't a negative review, but I just wanted to point out though how angry that the band are on this record. There's a lot of things of racism and mistreatment by the music industry on here. That's prevalent throughout the record. It's rumored that Dirty Walt wrote most of the lyrics on this album, and you have to understand, Fishbone were ahead of their time. I mean, they were a black rock band, and they started in the same LA music scene that the Chili Peppers and Jane's Addiction and other bands came out of. But while those two bands ended up selling millions of records and the members went on to become multimillionaires, Fishbone is still like on the underground circuit, and they had every potential to like blow up and be as big as them. But it's like, maybe because they were a black rock band, they made it to, they only let them get to a certain level, and it's like, okay, that's as far as you guys can go. I don't know. That could be the case. And then not only that, but they had all these personnel changes with members leaving. There's actually, I think there's some songs where they're actually kind of taking shots at some of the former members. Some of the songs I do enjoy on here, like Beer Gut, which I think is possibly a diss at Chris Dowd. I'm not quite sure. Psychological Overcast, which features a smashing performance from Busta Rhymes. I think a lot of the lyrics on that song is them kind of talking about some of the former members that had left. Let's see here, Alcoholic. This is a song that frontman Angelo Moore had written in his teens about his drunk uncle. That's a staple of their live shows, so I definitely heard that at the show that I saw them at last year. And actually, I think Fishbone, they actually been performing that song for years. They've been performing that song since the 80s, at least. And it might have popped up on some EPs back in the day. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, Chim Chim, this really marked the beginning of a new era for Fishbone, because with both Kendall Jones and Chris Dowd out of the band, the songwriting would change, because they were integral to the band's songwriting. Chris Dowd has been described as the band's pop writer. So he was the one that was really penning a lot of the hits. And, Kendall, he was the one that brought the hard rock and heavy metal into their sound. And he was also the one that wrote a lot of the lyrics that were very, they had like a lot of sharp social criticism, socially conscious stuff. He wrote a lot of those lyrics. So when they left the band, that kind of changed. Because after this album didn't really do well mainstream wise. I mean, it sold well amongst the underground, because quite frankly, the record sounds underground. But it didn't really do all that well as far as like what Dallas Austin had hoped, saying he wanted to do for them what Rick Rubin did for the Chili Peppers. But yeah, Kendall Jones and Chris Dowd were integral to the band's songwriting, and once they left, it just changed. I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff they did later, they kind of went for a more underground ska punk sound, especially on that album Still Stuck in Your Throat, which I think that's been the most recent full-length album that they've done, and that was back in 2006. And I could be wrong, because I haven't really familiarized myself with some of the later stuff, but I feel like the sharp social criticism kind of scaled back a little bit after Kendall left, and Chris as well. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe some of you who really are more familiar with that later stuff would beg to differ. I can definitely go check it out for myself, but that's just the way it seemed to me. But yeah, Chim Chim, I don't know. It's a record that I've tried to spend a lot of time with to try to figure out where the disconnect for me is, but I don't know. Maybe it'll resonate with me one day. But at this point, I can't really call it one of my favorites. But it's got a lot of good. It's got some good songs on there, man. It's got some good songs. I like the heaviness of it. It's one of the band's heaviest records, man, and I kind of like the anger that's expressed on here too. So that's a positive for me as well. So I definitely wouldn't recommend starting with that album. Don't start with Chim Chim. Like I said, start from the beginning with the Fishbone EP and work your way up. But just check it out for yourselves and formulate your own opinions. You don't have to take my word for it or anybody else's. But that's just where I stand with it, and maybe it'll change somewhere down the line. Alright, so that's it for this video. Me reviewing Fishbone's discography from 1985 to 1996, roughly the first 10 years. Hope you all enjoyed. Before I go, I want to give a recommendation to all you out there who may not be familiar with Fishbone, but this is the Everyday Sunshine documentary that the band put out with. When did this come out? I think it was like 2013 when this came out. No, it was 2012. It was 2012 when this came out. But yeah, this is the Fishbone documentary that I was mentioning when I was talking about a few of the albums. That's where I got a lot of my information from as well. Was from this documentary, Everyday Sunshine, the story of Fishbone. Really great documentary that I highly recommend to everybody. This is what made me a fan of Fishbone. Like, I was already aware of them prior to this documentary, but when I saw this, that's what made me go like, oh man, I really got to get into this band, because I enjoyed the story of their beginnings, the ups and downs, the struggles they went through keeping the band together, and I really liked how it told the resilience, especially of Angelo Moore and John Norwood. Angelo Moore and John Norwood had been the most consistent members of Fishbone. They have been the two that have kept that band going for so many years, man. They're like the lifeblood of that band. Because when everybody else left, it was them two that kept the ship moving. And this documentary really shows that, because there's moments where they're not seeing eye to eye and things of that nature. It's gonna show all the things that happen with bands. You know what I'm saying? It really gives you a reality check about what it's like to be in a band. But I really enjoy this documentary because it just really told so much that it was just an inspiring story that makes you admire bands like this and how they managed to just keep it pushing and keep going forward. So I highly recommend that you all check out this documentary. Of course, I got the physical copy. I always got to have the physicals. I don't know if this documentary is available in any. Excuse me. I don't know if it's available in any like streaming services or anything like that. I haven't checked it out, but I got the physical, so I don't really trip on that. But if you do come across this documentary, I highly recommend you check it out. Really good story. Even if you're not a fan of Fishbone, or even if you don't plan on becoming a fan, I think it's a really good music doc. I think it's one of the best music docs I've ever seen. So check it out. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you all enjoyed it. And once again, if you did enjoy this video, please hit that thumbs up and give me a like. Please share this video as well as subscribe to the channel, because it does help me out a lot. And I want to give a big shout out to everybody who has been supporting the channel, who's been subscribing, who's been leaving positive comments. Whatever you've been doing that's been contributed to my channel growing. I just really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week. Love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.